So if once you finish drawing your starting line and your finish line, you should have code that looks something like this, right? Where we create our screen and our turtle, and then we draw our starting line, and then we draw our finish line. Right? And if I go ahead and play that, you can see we turn red, draw the starting line, turn blue, draw the finish line. And but there's one problem. If you look at this code, it just looks so messy. And by messy, what I mean is it looks confusing, right? So if your mom came or if your dad came and saw your code, they'd be like, I don't know what any of this does, right? But there's a way that we can make the program more easily understandable to other programmers and even to ourselves when we come back at a different time. Let's say maybe, after summer's over, you go back to school for 2 months, and then you open up your Racing Turtles lab, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what does all this do again? I'm not sure, right? So what we can do here is instead of running these instructions here, we would make a function, right? And so I can call the function starting line, right? And then I can run these lines of code in the function starting line, right? And I can even go ahead and write a comment, and I could say draws the starting line, the red starting line. Okay, and so since we called the function, this is us calling the function, now the program's going to look for a definition with that name, but we don't have one, right? So let's go ahead and make one. Come back up here, let's put 2 lines in between, and let's say def starting line. And then we're going to go ahead and paste all of these lines of code that draw the starting line. And of course I want 2 blank lines in between these 2 function definitions as well. And you'll see the gray line disappears here. And so now, is this going to work? Well, let's go ahead and stop our program here and rerun it. And you can see we have errors, right? And so if you click on the first one I mean is the one on the very bottom, the blue line. You click on it and it tells you which line the error is on. So it tells you this is the line, and it kind of gives you a hint. It says this variable called t is not defined, and that means that there is no t variable, right? Like there's no t variable that exists here. And so what does that mean? Well, there's something that you need to know about variables. When you make a variable inside of a function, it only exists inside of that function, right? So if I'm running the main function, I make my variable t here, and I make it equal to a turtle. And then when I exit the main function, that t variable is gone. It does not exist anymore, right? So when I'm here in the main function and I'm going ahead and executing code and I get here to starting line, I'm jumping here to starting line and I'm starting to execute code, and it's saying, okay, well, that turtle that you were using before in main, let's go ahead and pen up him, go to pen down, make him red, and draw a line. Well, this function here is saying what t? Which t are you talking about? There is no t, because that t only exists here in the main function. Okay, it does not exist here. So what we can do is to solve that problem, what we can do is we can pass the variable to the starting line as an argument, right? And so we can pass the t variable, which has the turtle in it. Right? And the way I like to think about it is this is the quarterback, and it's throwing the turtle to its wide receiver out here. Right? And now to catch the wide receiver, you need to give it a name, right? And it could be the same name that you use here, t, right? But usually programmers like to use different names for we call it a parameter here when you're catching the turtle, right? When you're throwing the turtle, we call it an argument. Here we call it a parameter. But yeah, usually programmers like to use different names for parameters and arguments. So let's go ahead and follow their example and use a different name, turtle. So that means I'm going to have to go back and change all of these to turtle. Right? And so now when it comes to starting line, it's going to say, hey, I know what turtle is because it came from the main function, and the turtle variable has a turtle inside of it. So let me go ahead and run that, and you can see everything now runs beautifully. So now I'm going to ask you to go ahead and apply that same technique to writing a finish line, a function that's going to execute these lines of code as well.